Hey everyone, and welcome to Eagle Eye, presented by Nissan. Reuben, Frank, Dave, Zangaro. As always, a bunch to talk about. We'll get into the matchup against the Giants, at least what we know of who's going to play in that one. The Hall of Fame finalists were announced. Some injury updates on Jalen Hurts and CJ Gardner-Johnson. But we start off on a really exciting note here. Right before we're about to record this, the Bills put out a release updating the condition of Damar Hamlin, and a lot of good news in here.
Yeah, it's kind of almost seems miraculous. It's only been a few days, but his progress apparently overnight is really significant, and he's got a long road ahead of him, but he's trending in the right direction.
Yeah, very happy to read this to you guys. Per the physicians caring for Damar Hamlin at the University of Cincinnati Medical Center, Damar has shown remarkable improvement over the past 24 hours. While still critically ill, he has demonstrated that he appears to be neurologically intact. His lungs continue to heal, and he is making steady progress. We are grateful for the love and support we have received. That's from the Buffalo Bills. So it's good, very good news. Long way to go, but you can kind of feel the entire NFL breathing a little sigh of relief. Not out of the woods, but the whole league's really been waiting for an update like this.
Yeah, and not just the league, but I think the whole country. I mean, it's a story that's really touched a lot of people. I think when people have gotten to know what kind of guy he is, what kind of person he is. I know I've gotten messages from people that aren't football fans asking about it and how he's doing. And that's the best news you can hope for right now.
Yeah, exactly. And, we talked to some of the Eagles players and Nick Sirianni on Wednesday, and it's a weird thing because the whole NFL is waiting for these updates, and everyone's a little shell-shocked, but you have a game in a few days and you owe it to yourselves. And really, it's like almost dangerous if you don't refocus and get ready to play this game. So that's what the Eagles have had to do this week. It's what every NFL team has had to do, Bills included, which is even tougher, obviously. But what did you make of how the Eagles responded to it and what their messaging was?
Yeah, my sense was that guys are still trying to really crystallize their thoughts. I mean, it's something that's not easy to express. It wasn't easy for us the other day when we talked about it for the first time. And I think guys are still processing everything. And I certainly think this good news will help their mindset as individuals trying to, because there's that. Every player that goes on the field knows that could happen. Something could happen to them like that. And you can't play like that. You can't think like that. So it's a tricky thing to navigate, but we didn't talk to Avante or Miles, the two guys that know him the best. But I think we probably will this week. I hope so. But yeah, it seemed it was varied. I mean, the guys I talked to was varied. But I think, and certainly Nick Sirianni made it clear that anybody who's having issues coping with it, which is totally understandable. They have all kinds of resources guys can use. Knowing Nick Sirianni, if a player said, "Look, I'm just not ready to play Sunday," then he would not play, and they'd be fine with that. Whatever they need as people, and I think that's the culture of this franchise, and it goes up to the top and Jeff Lurie. But I don't think that'll be the case, and I think this news certainly will help everybody with that process.
Yeah, I think so. And it was, I thought one of the things Nick mentioned on Wednesday made a lot of sense. He said, this is like it. This is where we prove that these connections matter and these open dialogues matter, because if we can't use it now, then it's all BS. I'm paraphrasing. But it's true. It's like, this is not for this specific reason, but when things get tough, like that's why you build that foundation with his connecting. And we make fun of it sometimes because he says it so much, but like, I think you see the benefit in a time like this where there is some, there are tough conversations to be had, and they've had them, and they'll continue to have them. But having a coach with emotional intelligence at a time like this matters.
Yeah, there's no question. They had to walk through, and I mean, they would have done that anyway. It has nothing to do with Damar's situation. But I think probably working up to a full practice today, Thursday, is, makes sense. I know the Bills had a walkthrough. I'm sure those guys were just happy to be together. And I just can't imagine what that organization's going through. But I think every team's kind of dealing with it differently, but this is something that Nick's really good at. And it's so genuine. It's so real. I mean, he started getting to know every guy on the roster, when they get here, when he got here. And you build these relationships. And when you do that, there's just such a deeper, I hate to use the word connection, but just a deeper level of trust there and belief in each other. And yeah, we're seeing that now.
Yeah, we've seen it with the last coach too. I mean, they're on a run here with back-to-back coaches, and there was a clear changing of courses from a couple coaches ago, and they realized that, okay, no, this matters. And Doug and Nick are both there for their players, and it's not the only way to go. Like, you can have some hard-ass coaches, but there needs to be some sort of tenderness under it.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because Doug didn't have, he didn't talk about connect. He didn't use the same terminology and stuff, but it was definitely there.
Oh yeah.
Chip, all he cared about was go convert that 3rd and 7. I don't care about your sick grandmother.
I mean, I'm sure there was a little bit of that under there, but yeah.
Yeah. Big Red was, he didn't really advertise it, but he was very close to the players too.
Yeah, he would sometimes have a gruff exterior.
Yeah,
and I think that's this is off topic now, but I always think about that with Belichick, because he presents as such a gruff, curmudgeonly character.
Yeah,
but there is that tenderness under there, and I think when we've seen his assistants go elsewhere and fail, it's a lot of the times because they bring the gruff, but not the tender, and you need that mixture.
They really do. They all try to be like a hard ass like him.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't, it never works.
Yeah. It's because underneath of it, there has to be something.
Yeah. That's not what makes him a great coach.
Yeah.
Kind of makes him funny in interviews, but, but that's way off topic, but really, really good news. And, I know there was talk about, I don't think it's possible to postpone all the games this week.
Mm-hmm.
I guess maybe postpone all the games this week, and then
if they were going to do that, I think they would have had to do it earlier.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. I'm just saying it was thrown out there. Then I guess you get rid of the week. I mean, you can't move the Super Bowl date. There's too much, but I guess you get rid of the bye week between the conference championship games and the Super Bowl, which that's how it used to be.
And that could still happen.
Yeah. So we'll see. As far as the AFC and the tiebreakers and all that, it's almost like I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but it just doesn't seem important right now. And I'm sure if you're John Harbaugh and you're,
that's the thing. I mean, it obviously in the grand scheme of things, it isn't important, but you still got to figure it out.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the Eagles focusing on a football game. It's grand scheme, it's not important, but this is what's in front of you. You got to just, I asked Nick, how do you balance those really tough conversations with getting ready to play a football game? And he's like, you just do. You just have to, you don't have a choice. You just kind of have to do it.
Yeah, I thought it was a good question. It was a good answer. He didn't invent any BS. He just said, it's just hard. You just do it. You just transition. Yeah. You have to do it.
That's one of the things that was most striking hearing some of the players talk yesterday, and especially some of the veterans like Fletcher and BG. And it's these players, before they take the field every time, have that conversation with themselves. You don't know what's going to happen out here. And you don't think a terrible situation to that extent is going to happen, but there's always they know the risk.
Yeah.
And that's, it's eye opening for the rest of us, but I think football players kind of live in that risk all the time. So in a weird way, it's obviously it's shocking to see it, but they've conditioned themselves to be ready for this risk at all times.
Yeah. I can't stop thinking about that video. I'm sure you saw it of Damar and his mom before the game.
Last year or earlier this year.
Yeah. I'm not sure what game it was, but apparently he seeks her out before every game and gives her a hug.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine what that woman's been going through. And she's the first person I thought of when I saw the Bills, tweet out some good news this morning. Was just, I just can't imagine what she's going through, and just, knowing that she has gotten some good news from the doctors is, makes you feel a little bit better.
Yeah, it does. All right, let's move on a little bit. Jalen Hurts back at practice again, was listed as limited on Wednesday. It was a walkthrough, so those Wednesday injury reports are estimated.
Yeah.
And they're estimated given, all right, if it was a real practice, would he be full or limited? He was limited. Wouldn't read too much into that. I think it's trending that he plays this weekend. Where are you on that?
Yeah, I think the more I think about it, we talked about this before we started, I think the whole route back from last week did not practice Wednesday to limited Thursday and Friday to not playing Sunday to being limited Wednesday and then I'm anticipating full today, Thursday, and full Friday. I think it was all kind of scripted, orchestrated, whatever you want to say. I think that was the protocol they came up with, and barring setbacks, that if he needed to play Sunday, he would. We won't know till later this afternoon when we get the injury report, and we'll be at practice, but you can't tell at practice if a guy's limited or full. You don't know until because, all we see is the first today. It'll be the first half hour or so, but if he's limited, that'll come after we leave that part of it. So, but I would think he'd be full. And if he is, he's playing.
Yeah.
If he's not, if he's limited, he's probably not playing.
Yeah. And our colleague Jeff McClain from the Inquirer reported he took most of the first team reps in that walkthrough, which is very telling as well. The guy who gets follow the reps all the time, the guy who gets the first team reps they're preparing the start. And last week, Gardner Minshew got the bulk of those first team reps in practice. So.
There was a time when the Eagles practiced on the grass fields right by Patterson Avenue off the Schuylkill. They had a grass practice field, which is now the Phillies parking lot. But practice was closed back then, and we didn't know if Rodney Pete or I think it was Rodney Pete or Bobby Hoying was starting the next week, and Ray Rhodes wouldn't tell us. And I snuck up to the top level of the vet. I took the elevator up. It was like a just really cold, blustery, windy, like December day, and there's this giant concrete. Well, there was this giant concrete pillar. I brought binoculars with me, and every time they were about to start a rep, I'd peek out from behind the pillars and see who was taking the rep, and Rodney was taking all the reps. So, there was no Twitter, there was no internet, but
you just went on the street corner and yelled it.
Yeah, I wrote. That's what we did back then. Was we wrote for the next day's paper, and I wrote that Rodney was starting and that he took all the reps, and they were so mad at me. They never did figure out how I knew.
No, they're finding out right now in real time.
Yeah, so that was fun. Anyway,
yeah. So I think that's encouraging.
I think if you did that now, you get because you could see the practice fields from the top of the Citizens Bank Park.
Yeah,
you can't get in there. You could. I mean, the vet we worked in the vet, but yeah, you could still. Probably from our roof, you could probably tell. What if there's a hatch over here somewhere you can climb up?
I don't think so. Wouldn't be safe.
I see Clarky up there with the binoculars.
Yeah, so I think it's encouraging. And as long as the doctors deem that there's not a significant risk of re-injury, I think that's what you're worried about most. Then
yeah,
this is a big game. You got to play him. Ideally, he doesn't play. Ideally, you're resting everyone this week because you took care of business against the Saints, but you didn't. And now you're opening the whole team up to further injury. But
yeah,
that's the way it goes.
And I still can't believe they lost that game. I mean, I do, but they've had 2 chances and they got one more, and they're not going to blow this one.
I don't think so either, especially if Jalen plays.
It's in the back of my mind, though.
But I mean, the thing in the back of my mind is what is Jalen 100% when he plays?
Yeah.
Is that shoulder going to hinder him at all? Now, the fact that he threw a bomb down the sideline with minutes after spraining that shoulder,
irrelevant.
That is it?
Yeah, because it's. I mean, as it was explained to me, it's not even swollen yet.
Okay, that makes
sense. Point, like the swelling takes a while to. So that's why you see guys who have an injury, it doesn't set in until later. They sometimes guys will come off the field not even realizing that because they're sore. They're all sore all over the place. But then, the next morning they realize, wow, this didn't go away or whatever. So, Yeah, I think that's kind of irrelevant. The fact that he was able, it's kind of like McNabb when he threw the 4 touchdowns on a broken leg against the Cards in 2008.
Yeah, but okay, I get your point, but this is a throwing shoulder that just took a hit. I think it matters a little bit.
It matters, but I mean, I just don't. I think the fact of how a guy played after it and the immediate, snaps after it, I don't think is relevant.
I think it is a little bit. Yeah, I mean, maybe not a lot, but
you disagree with my doctors.
You got doctors on call?
Okay. I talked to my foot doctor about it this morning.
Yeah. We'll see. Because if we talked about this with Lane a little bit, like what percent of Lane is better than Driscoll? Right. Like what percent of Jalen Hurts is better than Gardner?
5.
It depends on which version of Gardner. Gardner's kind of hit or miss, I guess.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's not what you want in a backup. You want just a guy who's steady and consistent. Doesn't have to be great, but it's just okay all the time. What's the real answer to that question?
What percent?
Yeah. 55?
No, I mean, in this context, I think higher because you're talking about a throwing shoulder. He's got to be able to throw. So
Gardner can't throw. No,
we're obviously all down on Gardner right now because he had a bad Gardner game. But you want Jalen be able to make all the throws he could make before.
Yeah.
And I don't know where it would hurt him the most. Like that was one of the telling things watching Gardner's, like the zip off the hand was not the same.
Right.
And you just hope Jalen has that. It's not even about the deep ball necessarily. It's about getting the ball on time. And some of Gardner's throws were just not on time.
Yeah. His legs are fine. You hope that they can run the ball against whoever the Giants put out there, and he wouldn't have to throw more than 15, 18 passes, maybe build a lead and feel comfortable.
Now, what do you think about game plan going in? Will they have, read option stuff in there?
It's a great question.
Because that's been a big part of their offense.
Yeah.
And you need to win this game, and it helps you in the run game, even when he doesn't keep it. But if you're running read option stuff, there's a chance he's going to keep it.
Yeah, it's a great question. Maybe try to limit it. Maybe you can do it a little bit so you have the threat of it there.
Yeah.
You run a couple snaps that early, but you can't do anything that puts him at any kind of risk.
Yeah.
Undue risk.
Especially in this game.
Yeah.
Once you get in the playoffs, I think all bets are off. You have to do whatever you can to win the game.
And you would think, assuming they win, you would think that by the time January 21st, 22nd rolls around, that this is a distant memory.
Hopefully. Yeah. Definitely. Hopefully.
Yeah. Definitely. Hopefully.
Yeah. Some other injury updates. 3 players returned to practice this week. CJ Gardner-Johnson, Robert Quinn, and Brett Toth. We'll start with Toth. He hasn't played in a while. It was a shame for him. He tore his ACL in that regular season finale last year. I mean, I don't think they have a roster spot for him, so it's probably just a chance for him to practice, get his legs back under him. You shut him down and you bring him back next year, see what you have.
Right.
As far as Robert Quinn, they might need him, especially with Josh Sweat missing Wednesday's practice. They're going to take that slow with him, so you might not have him this week. If Robert Quinn can play, maybe activate him. Yeah,
it's funny. I was doing that story on Haason Reddick. And he's got a sack, or he's got at least half a sack in 8 straight games.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, man, I wonder who the last player to do that was. So I ran it through the streak finder on StatHead, and it was Robert Quinn. 9 straight last year.
Yeah, it's almost tough not to do that when you have 18 and a half.
Yeah, it is. So,
look, he's been a major disappointment, obviously.
Yeah,
but
he's rested.
He's fresh, boy. And look, I don't know what he's going to bring. But if you get anything out of him at this point, you feel like it's a pretty big win.
Yeah. You just need, 15 to 18 snaps out of him, because we know that you don't want to overdo it with BG. I mean, I think he can handle it, but you still got to. I mean, he's been so effective with limited snaps. You just don't want to overdo it.
And Patrick Johnson is like the next guy who gets snaps, and he's just a different player than Quinn and Sweat.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice to get something out of
BG. I was talking to BG. We were BSing yesterday. He's like, you know what the difference between this year and all my other years is? I was like, what's that? He goes, all those times I would like just miss a guy, like I'm getting him now. I don't know why.
Yeah, he had so many of those plays in his career where you're like, how does he not tackle that guy?
Yeah, he's like, they're just coming to me. He's like, I can't explain it. Yeah. It's so great. What a cool thing. But anyway,
but CJ is the big one.
Right.
The chance to get him back. It's a lacerated kidney, so it was kind of a weird deal the whole way. It's a medical thing. It's not even like a football injury.
Yeah.
So they showed precaution, and it's just rest. But he's been back doing like physical things. He'll be back at practice this week. Even if he's not back for week 18, it's such a positive sign because now you're like, all right, he's going to be back for the playoffs.
Yeah, that's really the main thing with him. You can get through the Giants, you would think, without him. You would hope. But by the time the playoffs roll around, if you win, he's had a couple months to let that thing heal. There's a rumor he's going to be talking to NBC Sports Philadelphia today.
We'll see. Me and CJ have an interesting relationship. I went up to him yesterday, or was I Wednesday?
Yeah.
And said, hey, can we talk? He said, yeah. I started asking him questions. He goes, no, I don't want to. I was like, well, all right, I get that. How about tomorrow? So we made a deal that after his first practice, he will answer some questions.
He's a different kind of cat.
Yeah. I really enjoy him, though.
Yeah.
I enjoy the different personalities. He's a unique one.
Yeah.
Like I always I'm trying to Michael Bennett was always kind of an oddball. I like talking to him because you never knew where it was going to go. And that's the way I feel with CJ.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. There's a few guys in the locker room like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mulata's like that. You never know what direction it'll go. There's a handful of guys.
Yeah.
Some guys are kind of down the middle.
Yeah.
Haason Reddick just started talking about penmanship.
We'll talk about Haason a little bit.
Yeah.
But getting CJ back would be a big boost. And we've talked about like how are they going to handle it when he's back. I think Josiah Scott had a better game against the Saints. Makes you feel a little bit more convinced that they can just leave him there and then play CJ at safety. But I still think it might depend on matchups. Avonte doesn't appear close. I mean, still in a walking boot.
Yeah.
So I think he's not on IR. Maybe they're just keeping him around in hopes that an NFC Championship game, Super Bowl, he might be ready. Because he's that good that like you burn the roster spot if there's a chance he could be ready.
Yeah. I think they can get away with doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And it also kind of helps a player rehabbing. I think he's like, well, they didn't put my IR, so you have that urgency to really, try to do it. My guess is GJ won't play Sunday. I don't think, I think they've been getting by okay without him. Obviously, the 3rd and 30, you never want that to happen. But I would think he wouldn't play. But it would be good to see him out there.
I'm not sure yet. I think there's a chance because it's like a medical thing. If they clear him, cleared, right? I don't know the risk of.
I've never even heard of a lacerated kidney. Sounds awful.
Well, sure you have. Zach Ertz.
Yeah, they didn't call. Did they call it that though?
That's what it was.
I thought they called it something different initially, but either way, it's incredible that he's missed 4 games now, and he's still
5.
He's missed 5 games. You're right, and he's still tied for the NFL leading interceptions.
I like that you didn't believe me.
No, I believed you. Okay. I was surprised. I had to count.
It was 5.
But yeah, it's 5 games.
He's played 11.
Got hurt in the Packers game.
Mm-hmm.
That was a while ago, but he's still tied for the NFL lead in interceptions with 6.
It'll be a big boost.
Yeah,
getting back. The middle of the field has been susceptible.
Yeah,
it's just when you have outside corners who are good, you're going to find mismatches in the middle. The Eagles been playing more zone without him and without Avonte, and good quarterbacks are going to find the space.
Yeah,
and there's been a lot of space for them to find. So getting him back will be helpful.
Yeah. Hey, it's the Nissan Thrill of the Drive event, so gift yourself what you really want this holiday season. Shop your local Nissan store or visit nissanusa.com today. Just like the holidays, these offers won't last.
Opioid addiction is a national public health crisis. The Someone You Know podcast from the Independence Blue Cross Foundation offers inspiring stories that challenge stigma, offer hope, and humanize the disease of addiction. Download the new season 3 of Someone You Know on all major podcast platforms. All right, Rube. Haason Reddick, you mentioned his penmanship. I love that anecdote. You sent me his quotes last night. I was reading through them. I was like, oh, that's the ticket there. And you did it.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that would work or not, but yeah, and it came up because he was talking about being a perfectionist, and he said, when I was in middle school, I had really bad handwriting, and there was I mean, he went to middle school in South Jersey, I guess in Camden. I don't think it was in Haddon Heights yet, but he said there was a teacher there who would write every letter on a piece of paper down the side, and he would just mimic the writing, and just like every letter, uppercase and lowercase, capital, whatever you call them in middle school, until he had beautiful penmanship. He said, to this day, I get when I sign something, I get praised for my penmanship. And he said, whatever you're trying to do, he said, try to be the best at it. And I wanted to be the best at penmanship, and I want to be the best pass rusher in the world. And he's damn close. He's been having one hell of a season. He talked about how people were doubting him after 2 games when he hadn't made any plays. And look, he was a guy, not after 2 games, but during the offseason, I had, just looking at his career, I wasn't sure. It's a lot of money. You give him a lot of money. And I didn't know. I didn't have huge expectations. I was dead wrong about him. He's been incredible, consistent. He's got 16 sacks in the last 14 games. There's only 2 games he hasn't had since week 3 that he hasn't had at least half a sack.
And some of his individual plays, like you watch him, you go, he's stacking moves. Like and that was why I talked to him before the year about just pass rushing and how much room he had to grow. And he's like, I'm still figuring this out. And we've seen that, like the evolution of him as a pass rusher is still ongoing. Like he's stacking moves together. He's doing things that not a lot of players can do.
He's got incredible body control, and he's able to get to the quarterback from weird positions, and when he's blocked, he can extricate himself pretty. He's just getting better at it, you can see. I'll read you one quick quote from him about that, if I can find it. He said, I feel like I'm getting to the point where I'm really understanding how to rush tackles. I feel like I'm close to figuring it out. The pass blockers here are way better than in college, and that's the difference. He just said it takes a while. I mean, he had 11 and a half sacks his first 3 years with Arizona, and he was kind of looked at as a bust, like a lot like BG. But he said every player coming into the league has to adjust to something: speed of the game, the level of knowledge you need to play at a high level. And for me, it was how to rush passers at a very high level, and I'm getting better at it. It's like drawing, painting, working on your penmanship, being a baby, learning to walk, learning to tie your shoes, whatever it is. The more you do it, the better you get at it. And that's what I feel like is going on.
Yeah, I mean, the difference with him and BG, at least BG was trying to get better as a pass rusher. Haason Reddick was playing off-ball linebacker. Yeah. So he wasn't getting the chance to just rush tackles.
Right.
I mean, he would get chances here and there, blitzing and whatnot, but he didn't get those reps. And that's why it's like, he just started rushing the passer. He got 11 sacks. You're like, okay. I mean, this is just basically off of raw talent and muscle memory of when he used to rush the passer. So now that he gets to refine it and he has the work ethic, and he got stronger too this year. He added some weight.
Yeah.
He added those power moves to his arsenal. He obviously had the speed moves, and
he still has that speed.
He still has the speed. He found a good balance of adding some muscle and power to his arsenal. He's fun to watch, man. And look, they're going to be, he's not going to win every single rep and be a force like that, but he's going to win reps. He's going to win reps each week, and they're going to be big reps. And he has a knack for the ball too, by the way.
Yeah.
Always. Yeah. The forced fumbles are there.
He's tied for the league lead with 5 forced fumbles. And just to put his season in context, it's funny because he had 10 sacks 3 weeks ago. Now he's got 16. All of a sudden, you look at the numbers, and only 3 players in Eagles history have had more sacks: Reggie White, Clyde Simmons, and some other guy that we just don't mention.
Carson,
the guy in Jacksonville, Chicago, San Diego. I mean, he played everywhere, but Jason Babin.
Yeah, okay. I was like, we have to say his name because he's not an obvious.
Right. He had 18 sacks that 1 year, got cut in the middle of next year. He had 18 sacks, 0 tackles. I remember we talked to Babin after one game where the Eagles gave up like 240 rushing yards, and he's like, I'm not here to tackle. I'm not here to stop the run. It's just, he didn't even – I had no compunctions about saying I'm just a one-dimensional player. The whole defense was just basically to get him sacks. It was such a flawed. But anyway, but he's in that kind of company. 16 sacks, second to Bosa, who's got 17 and a half, and just really consistent. And he's such a student of the game. It's really fun talking football with him. He's a very thoughtful guy, very deep, and so you'd like to see him get 3 so he can get ahead of Babin, get 3 on Sunday.
That'd be nice.
And be in that. The team record, which is one of the craziest records ever, is 21 by Reggie White in 87 when they only played 12 games.
Yeah, that Reggie was all right.
21 sacks in 12 games.
It's insane.
And the one game was canceled. The 3 of them were played with replacement players. And some teams, the regulars, crossed the picket line and played. If he had played against, like, basically guys off the street, he might have had another 20.
Yeah, and he would have been charged for assault.
Yeah, I mean, But even if the 4 games that he didn't play were played at that rate, he would have had like 30 sacks. Yeah. So one of the greatest seasons ever. And he's only 5 off that, which is crazy. He's going to end up with one of the best seasons ever by an Eagles defensive player. I really believe.
Yeah, I think he's already. I mean, he's there.
He's there. And what an off season for Howie. I mean, you go get AJ Brown. He's got 1,400 yards and 11 touchdowns. You go get Haason Reddick. He's got 16 sacks. That's a good starting point looking at the offseason. Yeah,
even if that's all he did.
Yeah, and some other pretty good moves too.
Yeah,
I mean,
certainly.
And he's got the NFL interception leader for a draft pick. I mean,
yeah.
So pretty good offseason.
Looking at some of the defensive player of the year odds, Reddick pretty low on the list.
Yeah.
Look, he's not going to win it. No. I think it's Nick Bosa's award this year, and I think it should be. But Reddick probably deserves to be in the conversation a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think after Bosa and Parsons, there's a number of guys that should be in that conversation, and
it's really been a 2-man race.
And I think the problem is, I don't know what it is. I think it's the same old thing about they have so many good pass rushers.
Mm-hmm.
BG, Sweat, Hargrave from the inside, Fletch is 7 sacks. That people just look at this defense as like everybody is contributing, instead of he's on another level.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about they have 4 guys with double digits. He has 5 more than everyone else in that group.
Right. Yeah, they all have exactly 11.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. Heck of a year.
Yeah, he's been fun to watch, and they got at least 2 more years of him.
Yeah,
I have a sneaky suspicion he'll be here longer than that if he keeps this up.
Yeah, and he also talked about how comfortable he is being back home, and that makes a difference for some guys. Some guys it's good, some guys it's bad. Yeah. You never know. Yeah, well, who's the D-back who was here a couple of years ago?
Darryl Worley.
Yeah, it's hard for some guys, but I think he's just really comfortable being back here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Normally, this is the podcast where we really dive into matchups for the upcoming game. We don't know how to do that this week because they're playing some iteration of the Giants that's pretty undetermined at this point.
Yeah.
But I have some things I want to watch in this game. We can go over that briefly. One of them is obviously Jalen Hurts, if he plays and how well he plays. A few records on the line. Now, I know everyone, when records are broken in a 17th game and the previous ones were 16, everyone is up in arms, and I get it. But eventually, these will be the records.
Because nobody says in a 16-game season, but there used to be 14 games.
Exactly.
But I think there'll be 18 games before we get used to 17 games.
That could be true.
Yeah, I would think.
Yeah. But A.J. Brown he almost did it in 16 games. He is, 8 behind Mike Quick's franchise record of 1409, which is a crazy number. It's amazing to think that AJ's done that already, basically.
Yeah.
So one catch will probably put him over that. And then the Eagles as a team have 68 sacks. They're 4 off the 84 Bears, who have 72.
Richard Dent and those guys. Their defensive coordinator was Buddy Ryan.
Yeah. I mean, that's a crazy mark. I mean, 68 in 16 games is...
It's insane. It's the 4th most ever. One of the questions on Huddle the other day was, this group has more than Reggie, Clyde, Jerome, Seth, Mike Pitts, Mike Golick ever had. Mm-hmm. Is this the best pass rush group in Eagles history? And I'm like, I can't say that. And I'm like, yeah, they are actually. Yeah, you kind of have to. And I said they're definitely the deepest and the most versatile. I mean, Reggie did line up inside sometimes. So, I mean, people were doing that back then. Yeah. And Buddy zone blitzed where people that don't like Haason Reddick dropping back, Clyde Simmons used to drop back in coverage. So it's nothing new having an edge rusher drop back. It's been, people have been zone blitzing for 30 years, but it's hard to say this group is better. I think that group is better against the run, but it's, Reggie and Clyde were the best ends I've ever seen.
It feels like sacrilegious to even think about.
But they're in the conversation. Yeah. And I mean, they need 2 for 70. And if that happens, you got to take a step back and take a look at it.
It's crazy.
And also, I think teams do pass more, but sack numbers are actually down from back then. Mm. So it's an interesting conversation. That's a conversation for like
pass numbers are up, but like quarterback efficiency is up, and guys are getting the ball out quick. Yeah. You have athletic quarterbacks who are able to sneak out of pass rush.
That's all like relatively new. I mean, back in the day, nobody got rid of the ball quickly. Mm-hmm. So so that 68 number is pretty impressive.
And we've seen that against the Eagles a bunch.
Yeah,
quarterbacks like nope, zoop, zoop, zoop.
Yeah, and not only 68, but I mean, they had 9 in that first Washington game, but then there was kind of a lull. But they've got, I think, in the last 5 games, they have like 32 or something. Yeah. That's crazy.
It is. A few other things here. If CJGJ plays, well, obviously CJGJ. If he plays, we'll watch him. Yeah. Miles Sanders. This is something in the back of my mind. Season low in snaps and snap percentage last week. 22 snaps, 40% against the Saints. He's been listed on the injury report with that knee injury. Wore a brace in that game. Looked fine when he was out there. He said the brace didn't bother him, but it's something to monitor for sure. going into this into the playoffs, really.
Yeah,
that week would help him quite a bit. You think?
Yeah, and he says he feels fine. He says he got used to the brace by his 3rd carry, which is in the second half. A little alarming. He had 3 first-half carries in the Bears game, 2 against the Saints. He had 7 in Dallas, but still, that's 12 first-half carries in the last 3 games. It's not enough.
Yeah.
That's not enough. That's especially when you have your backup quarterback out there. Now, I do think Miles is just, in general, going to be less effective when Jalen's not there, because I think he makes that running game so much more dangerous just because of the threat of him running. It just changes the way defenses are playing the Eagles. But I just think he has to be more of a factor early in games.
Yeah. I'm just wondering if, at least in that last game, if the knee factored into how they were using him.
Well, if it does, then Kenny Gainwell's a perfectly good, give him.
Well, it seems like whenever Miles is injured or they have to, it's Boston who gets more run as like a traditional runner.
It seems like they like Gainwell kind of as that 2-minute drill guy,
third
down guy. I might take a look at that. I like Boston, but I don't know. I think Gainwell's a pretty good weapon. I think I might make him my number 2 back.
Yeah. And my last thing here is basically it's Kaiser White, but also the middle of the Eagles defense, kind of susceptible the last couple of weeks. Pretty good tight ends, but it's something to watch. I think having CJGJ back will help that and some of the spacing, but teams are targeting Kaiser White quite a bit right now. And I think he's had an okay season, but when you have 2 really good corners on the outside and you're missing your nickel, you're missing one of your starting safeties, they're going to attack the middle of the field, and then he becomes the matchup you want to attack, and we've seen that.
Yeah, he's been a little bit of a disappointment, especially second half of the year. I wanted to ask you about Tyrod, who's, by the way, a guy who will take sacks. He will hold on to the ball. He's been with the Ravens, the Bills, the Browns, the Chargers, the Texans, and the Giants. He's in his 13th year, I think. He's a smart guy. He doesn't throw interceptions. I think he might still have And he's top 5 all time in best interception ratio, I think, behind Aaron Rodgers. And he might be second to Aaron Rodgers. Minshew was. He's now third. He dropped. Can't imagine why. Look, they should be I mean, he shouldn't make. They don't have any receivers anyway. I mean, if they play their backup receivers, they're playing their starters. But it's just, I'd almost rather face Daniel Jones. I don't know
why.
I don't know. Just the unknown, I guess. The Joe Webb factor.
I mean, well, you know Tyrod pretty well. He's been in the league for a decade.
13 years. Yeah.
I mean, Shane Steichen knows him pretty well.
Yeah.
Chargers.
Yeah. Yeah, they'll be all right either way. I don't know. I think I was scarred by the Joe Webb game.
Well, they're not playing on Tuesdays, so.
As far as we know.
As far as we know, you're right. Hall of Fame finalists have been revealed.
An outrage.
A yearly outrage for you.
And I've had this conversation with Eric Allen, the best cornerback I've ever seen. 58 interceptions, 9 pick sixes. I mean, I don't know, 7 Pro Bowls, all pro first team once, second team twice. Again, I think, and there's a lot of guys on that defense who should have been considered for the Hall of Fame. And nobody was other than Reggie. Reggie obviously got in the first ballot. But the fact that nobody else has even been a finalist. Clyde Simmons was 10th in NFL history in sacks when he retired. Eric Allen, the most, we have 4 postseason interceptions in 8 games and 2 pick sixes. The production is, I mean, Seth Joyner, the only player in history with 50 sacks and 25 interceptions. There's so many guys on that defense that I think because of Reggie, everyone just thought, oh, that defense was Reggie. And I think that's hurting Eric Allen. I mean, Aeneas Williams got in, and Eric Allen's never been a finalist. And I just don't get it. You ask any wide receiver, and those guys overlapped for most of their careers, they will tell you Eric Allen was the better player. The smartest player I've ever been around. I used to watch film. We were allowed to watch film with players back in the day. Mm-hmm. And Eric Allen and Seth Joyner I used to watch film with those guys, and they would just teach me how to watch film, what to look for, what they look for. And his preparation was just off the charts. Played 14 years, could have played a lot longer. Was playing a really high level when he retired. I think he was his last game was the Tuck Rule game. He just was so disgusted. He just retired. I don't get it. I don't understand why he's never been a finalist. I don't even know who the Philadelphia guy is. It was Paul Domowitch. I don't know if he's still.
I think he still is.
He still is. I know he believes, in Eric's case. I don't know beyond that. I'm sure he's doing all he can, but Eric Allen also, I believe, played every game all but 1 year of his 14-year career. Such a big part of that defense in the late 80s and early 90s. One of the reasons they got all those sacks was because he would shut down. And you think about the receivers in NFC East back then. I mean, you're talking about, Michael Irvin and Art Monk and Gary Clark and, Ricky something. It was just great receivers all over the place. Arizona was in a division. They always had good receivers. So Ricky Prohl, Eric Allen was shut them all down. Big playmaker. Probably the greatest interception return ever off Boomer Esiason in that Jets game. The game Randall got hurt week 5 of the 93 season. A 94-yard touchdown return. He probably ran 300 yards, twisting and turning, and then handed the ball to Randall in the tunnel, who was on crutches. Great drama. So, yeah, really disappointing.
Yeah. It's still a strong finalist list. A few first-timers as finalists. First-timers eligible. You have Joe Thomas, Dwight Freeney, and Darrelle Revis.
Yeah.
That's a strong crop of first-timers there. I would think Joe Thomas has a really good shot to go in.
I would think so.
Revis should be a lock.
29 interceptions, only 30 fewer than Eric Allen.
Yeah, I mean, but
he deserves it. I'm not saying he doesn't, but I think the guy who had the most interceptions over his decade certainly should be considered.
Yeah, I don't want to take away from Revis's case. He was the best corner of a generation.
He was.
Yeah.
So was Eric Allen.
Okay. Can't be happy for Revis.
No, I am. I am. He's certainly deserving, and he was a great player. Pennsylvania guy, right? He's from Pitt.
Yeah, and there's like a backlog of receivers. Torrey Holt might have a chance this year. Andre Johnson, a finalist again.
Torrey Holt has to go in. I can't believe he's not in already.
Yeah, I mean, Andre Johnson should go in too. I mean, he was not his fault. He was in an awful franchise for that long.
Yeah.
Reggie Wayne, a finalist. So there's kind of, those three are all deserving, but
out of those three, when I did that book, The Most Overrated and Underrated Players in Football History, Reggie Wayne was one of my receivers.
On which side?
Underrated.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, because they had Marvin Harrison all those years. Yeah. And yeah, he probably, had some pretty favorable matchups, but man, his production was insane.
Yeah. I mean, for me, Andre, you just look at the quarterbacks who were throwing him the football. Best quarterback he played with was Matt Schaub.
Schaubby.
So it was a rough go for him. Devin Hester is an interesting case.
Yeah.
I think he deserves to be in just because he was so electric and dynamic.
Are you the best? Was he the best at anything? That's and he was the best returner ever.
Yeah.
Other than Covey.
DeMarcus Ware, man, just really underrated career, I think.
Yeah.
Zach Thomas, just as good as all those linebackers who have gotten him before him.
Yeah.
So it's tough. There's no easy way to do this. And
no, it's
like everyone who's a finalist is deserving of Hall of Fame status. It's just a matter of when it comes.
One other guy who isn't on that list, but he's an old timer, or the old timers candidate, is Ken Riley. 65 interceptions and not in the Hall of Fame. And he's so I think with the old timers, they either vote yes or no. It's not like it's a different sort of voting. He's got the most picks in history by a non-Hall of Famer. Eric Allen is 7th on that list. Played his whole career at the Bengals in the 70s and early 80s, so didn't get a lot of notoriety, but certainly deserving. Ken Riley I don't believe he ever made a Pro Bowl. He has 65 interceptions. He has seasons with 9, 8, 7, and 6 picks, and 3 with 5, and never made a Pro Bowl.
Wow.
It was a first-team All-Pro his last year. His last year in the league was 83. He was 36. He had 8 picks, 2 pick sixes, and was a first-team All-Pro, and didn't make the Pro Bowl. He's a Hall of Famer to me. I hope he gets in.
Yeah.
And, he died a couple of years ago, sadly. I just wish he'd be around to see that. Ken Riley, great player.
Who, on this current Eagles team, who has the best chance to get in? It's Kelsey 1, right?
Yeah.
And then who after that? Because then it's like, it's fun. I play this game because it's fun, because it's like, on one hand, you have the guys who have built this resume, but is it enough? Or you can take a flyer on a younger player who you think has that trajectory.
No, that's a great question. I just don't think Fletcher's done quite enough.
It's a strong case. It's a really strong case, but I think if his career was over right now, we wouldn't get in.
Yeah. No, I mean, he has 7 sacks this year. He's only 32. So if he can play at this level, I don't think it'll be here. But if he can play a few more years, kind of like JP, and get 5, 6, 7 sacks and get to like 80 as an interior lineman, might have a chance.
Playing in an era with Aaron Donald has hurt him.
Doesn't help.
Yeah. But you can argue that he's the second best interior defensive lineman of his generation.
Yeah, you certainly could. 6 straight Pro Bowls helps. 1 All-Pro doesn't. But he has been second-team All-Pro 3 times. I would say Jalen Hurts over Fletch.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How about like AJ?
Yeah, I mean, certainly make a case. He's off to a great start, and he's only 25.
Yeah, you're trying to find trajectory at that point, because like I don't think Lane is going to be able to pile up accomplishments at the rate like Hall of Fame talent, certainly.
Right. Yeah, but I would, when you look at Jalen, he's 24, and you look at what he's done and how much room there is for additional growth.
I mean, I think Slay will make like the initial list, it's probably hasn't done enough.
Was he got 29? He was talking about things. Got 29 picks. Reddick, is starting to put together a body of work, but he kind of started too late.
And there's so many pass rushers.
And he's 28. Yeah. So, yeah. So he's already in his prime. Slay has 26. 5 Pro Bowls, and he's 31. He hasn't had the picks. He hasn't had a great second half. I don't think he's been awful. I don't think teams have thrown at him that much. I wonder if we're starting to see him fade a little bit. That might be a little strong.
Yeah, I think that's true.
But I don't think 26. Really great player for a long time. But and again, if the Eagles win a Super Bowl in the next couple of years, people look at Super Bowl players when it comes to
that's the thing. If EA won Super Bowl, he's probably already in.
Yeah.
If that team won a Super Bowl, maybe it's a lot different for some of those guys.
There's no question about it.
Yeah.
And they were seen as an underachieving team, and rightfully so.
Yeah. All right, that's all we have in the Hall of Fame. There's one more thing I wanted to mention, and he tweeted this out while we recorded this, so you don't know this is coming, but Jim Salisbury announced that he's leaving NBC Sports Philly. One of our favorites, a good friend of both of us. So we'll miss Jim. We wish him the best. GOAT. Just
the best.
GOAT.
Just the best. I worked with Jim, we both did at Calkins at our old newspaper, and I was just always in awe of him and the way he covered the team, the Phillies. He knew everyone. He knew everything. He was so great. We talk about connecting. He was so great at getting to know all the old baseballs, all the old scouts and the old minor league hitting coaches and all those guys. And he developed those contacts into such a network that made his coverage it gave it such depth. Great storyteller, but he was great at breaking news, but he was a great storyteller. And I loved reading his stories about those old guys who were retiring or, the career baseball men. He loved writing about those guys. And
to cover the baseball beat for that long and to still do it the way he did, covering baseball is such a grind. Yeah. I don't think I could do it. It's insane. There's 162 games. You're on the road half the time.
And you have to get to the stadium at 2:00. I've covered, they sent me to Chicago, to Pittsburgh. I covered a few Philly series. And I was at the end of 3 days, I was I need vacation. Yeah. And I think Corey Seidman and Jim are a perfect combination where, Corey's so great with analytics and numbers, and Jim's just such a great storyteller, and he'll be missed. I hope I don't know what's next for him. I hope he's involved in writing about baseball in some form.
Next for him is a couple beers with us. That's what we want.
That's right. Yeah.
We're going to hold him to that.
Yeah, we will.
All right. That's all we've got today. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye Podcast, please do us a favor, rate and subscribe wherever you got your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. We'll talk to you after the game on Sunday. For Reuben, I'm Dave. This has been Eagle Eye presented by Nissan.